All information given in this episode is for educational purposes and should not be tried prior to consulting a licensed physician and or certified state or accrediting bodies. We encourage all listeners to research, talk, and make all inquiries to all of the important professionals and governing bodies before acting on any information heard on the De La Fit podcast. Any action taken by any listener is done by and under their own omission and action, whether conscious to the results, positive or not.
To the De La Fit Podcasts, 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health, all in one podcast.
Salutations and proclamations. It is I, it is you, it is us, it is we. Together we make up the digital family that is the De La Fit Podcast. I'm your host, Philly's number one son, aka the Body Alchemist, Sun Moon Bay, bringing you another podcast excursion. Welcome one, welcome all to the 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health. We have a great show for you today. I'm very excited. You know, I talk about this a lot. The fact of health and fitness is not just about what you do in the gym. It's not just about the amount of protein you're taking in. It's not just about the calories that you have or you don't have, you know. It's about so much more. The 360 degrees represents an infinite circle of what is health. What is fitness? What is being fit? Is being fit just what you are putting on the bar? I don't think so. I think being fit is the fact of relating back to that circle. Relating back to spirituality, relating back to mental health, relating back to physical health, financial health, and questioning and asking these questions. See, because when you're fit in every aspect of your life, you're truly fit. See, fitness to me is the aspect of being able to function appropriately. When a lot of people come to me for physical training, and they say, I want to get fit. I want to get healthy. I always ask them why. What is your purpose? What makes you want to start this journey? And a lot of people are confused as to why they are starting the journey. You know, I look at that as kind of my job to help them. But then there are some people, they understand, they're like, well, I want to be able to have the best life possible. I want to be able to move and to function. Well, the topics that we have here at the De La Fit Podcast are just like that same statement, dealing with the different aspects of fitness, being able to maneuver, being able to function on the plane of manifestation. Very important task. And here we try to be a resource for everybody out there. So with that being said, we have an amazing show. We've got some great guests. We've got some amazing women. I'm feeling ecstatic about this show. We're going to be talking about something that I firsthand don't have much knowledge of, which is CBD and THC. For those out there who aren't really familiar, these are things that are derived from the cannabis plant. For some of you out there who are still wondering, this is a conversation somewhat about marijuana. Somewhat. We're going to go a little bit deeper. I've got special guest here today with me, Elana Frankel, who is co-owner of the corporation or company Indigo and Haze, as well as Sammiyah Taliaferro, who is owner of Sunflower Space Cakes. They're going to help educate, they're going to debunk myths, and they're also going to give you some background on their story as to how they got involved with CBD and THC based products. They're going to be explaining to you how it's not just something that only a select few can get involved in. So I'm so excited in having them on the podcast, and I'm not going to hesitate. We're not going to pause on this. We're going to go directly into it. So we're going to take a small commercial break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to start a conversation with our first guest, Elana Frankel, and we're going to hear her story, which I think is an amazing story. One of surprise, shock, and awe. We're going to get to that next. But before we do, I just want to say thank you for joining us. You know you're home with the De La Fit Podcast. So pull up a chair, kick up your feet, relax. It's the De La Fit Podcast. Hey, you, with the earbuds in their ear. Have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? When I was trying to get my podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions. How do I record an episode? How do I get my show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other places people like to listen? How do I make money from my podcast? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors too, so you can get paid to podcasts. I like to upload my episodes directly to the app and then promote. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast, make money doing it. Go to anchor.fm/start to join me in the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast.
De La Fit Podcast is now available on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play Music.
You're now tuned in to the De La Fit Podcast.
Welcome back to the De La Fit Podcast. We talk about everything here. There's nothing that we do not touch because we believe that holistic health and fitness is not just the barbell. I've said that time and time again. If you're just focusing on what you're doing in the gym, if you think it's just about lifting weights, if you think it's just about, what your protein and ingesting certain things, it's not. It's spiritual, it's mental, it's physical, it's financial. It's that 360-degree circle that stretches infinite across the universe. As long as we're human beings on this plane of existence, all of those things deal with our health and fitness. I'm very pleased to have with us a special guest who's going to be talking about a topic which I don't know much about. All right. I don't know much about this. I don't know even really how to bring this part up, but we have special guest Elana Frankel, and her story is one that I think is not only motivating, it's amazing. All right. But it touches on so many things. I'm just going to have her start right now. Elana, are you on the line?
I'm here, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to tell my story.
It is our pleasure. It is my pleasure. When my assistant and I heard this, and we heard the podcast, and we heard some of your story, I was like, wow, she's got to be on this show. She's got to be on. Because this is amazing. It's very intense. Let's first things first, just to give a little bit of background about you. Elana Frankel is co-founder of Indigo and Haze. So tell us a little bit about that. What is Indigo and Haze?
So Indigo and Haze is a very highly curated marketplace. It's plant-based products, and in particularly hemp-based products that are high in CBD. We offer a really very highly selected group of products because we are highly aware of all of the CBD products that are out there, especially in the last 6 months. It's been exploded. It's all over the place. Everyone sells it. Literally everybody and their mother.
Right.
And we wanted to take out the guesswork for you. So we did all the research from farm to shelf, from seed to sale. We've gone in, talked to farmers, talked to formulators, talked to distributors, got analysis, lab reports, all of the things that you would do to do due diligence when looking at this product category. And we've created a very high quality group of products that you know you can trust.
So, Elana, do you mind if I call you Elana?
Yeah, please.
All right, Elana. So for everybody out there that's listening, all right, just before we started this interview, I told Elana, I said, listen, I know nothing of this. I'm sure some of my friends right now are laughing, and they're literally probably exploding on the floor right now with laughter because I literally was the guy that, was like, I ran track, I wrestled, I did martial arts, I trained, and, they would, some of them used it recreationally. No judgment for anything or anybody. Whatever you do, hey, live your best life, like the younger people say. And I knew only very few people who used it medicinally. But you said something in the beginning, which corrected me. You said, now it's different from THC and CBD, and I'm going to say all that sounds like alphabet to me. So please break that down for our listeners, please, and me.
I will. And just so you don't feel so bad, I used to be like you.
Okay.
So I knew people who smoked pot. I knew people who got stoned. I'm a yoga teacher, and so I'm very focused on that mind-body-spirit connection,
right.
And being grounded. And so when it was first introduced to me, I was like, no, what? But I educated myself. I spent a lot of time reading. I spent a lot of time learning and unlearning a lot of the myths that I had believed or had been told about cannabis. And when I got to a place where I felt comfortable based on my story, I needed to get out there and get products. So basically, the way that I have looked at this world is that there's a spectrum, and on one end of the spectrum is medical marijuana, where people who are going through chemotherapy, people who have epilepsy, people who have chronic pain, people who are going through MS, Crohn's disease, hardcore medical conditions where you need to consult and partner with a healthcare professional, a doctor, to get into the dispensary system and get high quality marijuana to relieve symptoms from those situations. On the other side of the spectrum are your friends. Recreational marijuana, it's a Friday night, it's the end of the week. Instead of having a bottle of wine, they're going to roll and smoke a joint.
Right.
But there's an entire, and most likely high in THC, which is the compound that gets you stoned. So there's a whole sort of middle area on that spectrum where everybody is talking about at the moment, because that part of the spectrum is the wellness part. It's not the extremes. It's the wellness area. And that is starting to include a compound extracted from the plant called CDB. And that extract, while it is non-intoxicating, it doesn't get you stoned, it is high in anti-inflammatory properties. So it's a natural anti-inflammatory. And so when you do take this plant extract in oil form, and we'll talk about all the intake methods, because you just don't smoke anymore.
Right.
As a matter of fact, that's my least favorite thing to do. But when you intake, and depending upon the dosage and what you're using it for, because it's a natural anti-inflammatory, it immediately helps decrease anything that's going on in the body, whether it's inflammation or just general anxiety. And quite frankly, inflammation is the basis of a lot of issues.
Very true.
Particularly anxiety, chronic pain, and quite frankly, even wrinkles. So that's why everybody's sort of all of a sudden jumping on the CBD bandwagon, because while it is an incredible compound, and there is not a lot of research out there, but a lot of anecdotal evidence and a lot of preliminary research is showing that it does help in the sort of middle area of daily wellness. Okay. And so, again, the difference being the CBD that I use is hemp-derived as opposed to marijuana-derived. So the sort of cannabis umbrella is there, and under that umbrella is marijuana on one side and hemp on the other. And under marijuana, there's THC, CBD, and quite frankly, hundreds of other compounds that we're not even familiar with yet. But on the hemp side, it's very rich in CBD, particularly in the resin part of the plant. But that's it. There's no THC.
Okay.
And quite frankly, even beyond the wellness of it, the plant is extremely useful for so many other things, including hemp seeds, food. Hemp seeds are delicious.
Yes, it is. I use it all the time.
Biodiesel, yeah. So hey, there you go. You have been more familiar with cannabis than you think. Textile, biodiesel fuel, alternatives to plastic, alternatives to concrete, hempcrete. So the hemp plant itself is a huge opportunity, and CBD is just part of it.
So, all right. First of all, thank you for breaking that down, because now I feel a little bit better. I don't feel like where's Waldo in a world. So I want to ask you this, because I know some of the story. All right, like I said, I listened to some interviews with you, but I want our listeners to know, how did you gain this knowledge? What took place that started you on this journey?
So I was living my best life, or what I thought was my best life. Like I said, I'm a yoga teacher, meditation as well. I also am a creative director and was working at a company where I was responsible. I had a team of 40 people, and we created content in a photo studio, video, still photography, and it was a fast-paced, very high-octane kind of existence. And I did something I normally don't do. I went for a girls' weekend to Miami. My girlfriends, 2 of them, and myself. We were at a restaurant. I stood up and said, you know what, I'm not feeling so well. I'm going to use the ladies' room. And when I woke up, I was having a CAT scan.
Oh, wow.
So nobody really understands what happened in that short period of time. But either I fainted and had a seizure, or had a seizure. But what they do know that happened is that I fell. I hit the back of my head and fractured my skull, about a 4-inch fracture. And then that impact was so hard that my head thrusted forward and my brain hit my skull, bruising and inflaming the front part of my brain. So I had an all-over TBI, traumatic brain injury, which is basically a swollen, inflamed head. And so when I woke up, I was manifesting a lot of the symptoms you would see in a stroke victim. I couldn't speak.
Right.
My brain was short-circuiting. I was in a sort of daze and fog. I couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't quite understand what was happening. Any kind of loud noise, bright light, if more than one person was communicating to me at a time, my body would just shut down. It was crazy. Now, there are 2 things that I can say now that I can laugh at. During the time, I was sort of like crazy. But when I first got to the hospital in Miami, took such good care of me. But when I first got there was no private room. And so I had a shared space with an older gentleman who had Tourette's.
Right.
So under all of this duress, I had a man laying next to me yelling obscenities.
Oh my God.
So that sort of intensified the process.
I was about to say, everything isn't bad enough.
Exactly. But I did end up, pushing my morphine button a lot, because I was like, you gotta get me out of this situation. And I just had to shut down. And so I was pumping all of these drugs into my body and getting a little bit more loopy and a little bit more crazy and a little bit more incoherent.
Right.
And then the other thing was that at one point, I guess my girlfriend who was there, I was laying in the restaurant, EMT were working on me. I have no memory of this, but apparently my girlfriend was talking with my sister, telling her what had happened. And they were discussing to see whether I had been roofied. And I must have heard the word roofie, because apparently I sat up and I said, nobody roofies a middle-aged mother of 2. And then I went back down. Somehow.
Wow. Okay. You're like, that's not happening. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So let your listeners know I was not roofied. But when the doctors came, my mom flew down, and when the doctors came in, they said, listen, you have a TBI, you have a swollen brain. We can't do anything until the swelling goes down. You cannot fly, you cannot drive, you have to stay in Miami. And I had a job, I'm a mother of 2, I have a husband, I have a life, I have a family, and I wasn't prepared, nor was anybody else prepared for me to stay in Miami for months.
Right.
So, Yeah. So my mom, I've had an incredible family support system, my mom being one of them, somehow talked the medical staff into allowing me to get on a flight where the air marshal was trained in traumatic brain injury and brain swelling. So somehow that miracle worker mother of mine found a flight, and when we got there, you could tell it was a traumatic brain injury flight because there was a row of wheelchairs with people who had big hats on, sunglasses, noise-canceling headphones. You could tell nobody wanted any stimulus in this group of wheelchairs.
Wow.
So I got back to New York, consulted with doctors here. I'm in New York, and spent a lot of time with neurologists, talking to people. Well, not me, but my family. And the same thing I heard every time was, you have a traumatic brain injury, your brain is swollen. The only thing we can recommend is bed rest until the swelling goes down, and then we can see what the damage is. And everyone said that could take up to a year.
Wow. A year? Wow.
And honestly, it was unacceptable to everybody.
Right.
And we needed to figure out alternatives. We needed to figure out another way to heal myself, to heal me, because we couldn't just live like this for a year.
Of course, right.
And so that's when my husband came to me and said, listen, I've been researching alternatives. I found a very obscure paper written about clinical trials in Israel that are focused on soldiers who have gone through PTSD, who have head injuries, and they're using this plant extract called CBD because it's a natural anti-inflammatory. I think we should try it. And in my stupor, at this point, even though I'm still slurring, I can communicate. I said, what is CBD? And he told me what it was. And I said, I'm not getting stoned.
Right.
I said, it's not THC. It's not going to get you stoned. It's CBD. And that's what started us on our educational journey, on our learning journey. Like I said, learning and unlearning, and talking and reading, talking to as many people as we could, reading as much as we could, and trying to understand, is this an alternative for me?
Right. I heard it before, and you telling it to not only me but the listeners, I'm amazed. First of all, I'm amazed, and let's just say that I'm so happy that you are able to live your best life and continue living and functioning, because you sound amazing. I mean, I don't think anybody would know what you've been through unless you've told them. So,
Thank you. I'm grateful. Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful that it could have been a lot worse.
Right.
I've heard a lot of stories, and speaking to other people who've gone through TBIs, and people have lost people through TBIs. I'm very, very grateful to be here, and I continue to plan on seizing every day.
Right.
Because of what I've been through, because I know that I might not get out the other side.
So, all right. So from this time now, you're using you've gone through this learning process, which is already difficult because you have this traumatic injury, which I can only
my other support system.
Right.
my other support system did a lot of the research.
Shout out to your husband. First of all, shout out to your mom for that amazing how she was able to get the flight going. Because I have an amazing mom. I can only imagine how your mom did it. They make work magic. And for your husband, who got I'm thinking a short PhD on CBD in like probably a month. Shout out to those people. So, all right, now you're going through, or he's going through the learning and this research. So now you've gotten to the point where you're like, okay, I'm gonna use it. How did you start? Did you have a form?
Yeah, no. So the funny part is, you get to this point where you're like, okay, you know what? I'm accepting that this is a safe alternative. I need to try it. And then you sort of sit up and you're like, okay, now what? Like, how do I get it? Like, what am I, like, And I did know that there are lots of parts of this country that are so far ahead of us in terms of cannabis understanding and research, and understanding not only THC and CBD, but all the other compounds that are coming,
right,
that are being extracted from the plants. And so we started making phone calls, and we started saying, okay, listen, here's the situation. Here's what we want to try to do. Do you know anyone? Do you know anyone we can get in touch with?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a phone tree, the story is intense and people wanted to help. And so we started getting different types of product in. We started getting tea. We started getting topicals. I wasn't comfortable vaping, inhaling anything. And so I stuck with topicals as well as tea. And so we just started, as I now preach to lots of people, start low and slow. So you take a really small amount in whatever form that you prefer. In my case, I'm a tea drinker, so the idea of tea is unbelievable. And there was a ginger turmeric, and turmeric is also high in anti-inflammatory properties. A ginger turmeric tea that was hemp derived. And so you start low and slow. You start with a low doses, and what that means to you is what that means to you. So if you take 2 or 3 sips of tea, just to say, okay, I did it. How am I feeling? Okay, I feel okay. Maybe take 1 more sip. Okay, I feel okay. Okay, I finished this cup. This might be my limit today. Let me see how I feel.
Gotcha.
And then what I ended up doing is keeping a very strong journal about not only how much I took or what I was taking, but how it made me feel.
Okay.
And what I learned was that not only is it great to go back and say, oh, interesting, this is what I felt on this day, this is what I felt on that day, this is what I did here, this is what I did there. I started to see a pattern and started to put the pieces of the puzzle together. But also I started to notice that at different times of the day, the CBD affected me differently. So sometimes I would drink it before bed, the tea, and I would sleep amazing. I would have the best night's sleep. And then sometimes I would take it before bed, and I would have incredibly intense dreams, and I would toss and turn. And then sometimes I would do a topical. I found that I would rub a lotion or a salve on my feet, put socks on so it warmed it up, and that would absorb and give me great relief. So it became a sort of, I had to be my own practitioner, and I had to be my own health advocate and wellness advocate. So I had to spend a lot of time figuring out, what to do when, how much, and I felt comfortable that there would never be a part of me that would sort of hold back, because I had to start to feel better. I really needed to take it as far as I could, because I needed to see what would bring me relief sooner rather than later.
Right. So, you're healed. Are you healed now, or do you have any effects?
There are some side effects. I do have some side effects, and I lost my sense of smell and taste.
Okay.
And taste has come back. It's not fully there, and sometimes I don't quite understand what I'm tasting, but I feel something while I'm tasting, which is a whole other episode that we can talk about. That when you lose your taste, you start to get it back. It's this whole sort of mind game. But smell is still very elusive, and I still have no sense of smell, which, by the way, is not necessarily a bad thing on your day-to-day basis, because nobody you don't realize you can't smell until somebody says, oh, smell that. And I'm like, actually, no.
Right.
But it doesn't happen on on a daily basis. And living in New York in the summer, sometimes not smelling is a good thing.
I've been in the city a lot. I know how that could be useful at times.
Exactly. I am also the mother of 2 boys. Another side effect that I'm not too worried about.
Right.
So, and then the third thing, which has actually just recently come up in the last year or so, is vertigo. And now I understand what triggers it. And so I think it's a byproduct of bruising that never healed, probably on the right side of my brain. When I'm moving forward, like if I'm sitting in the passenger seat of a car, and I turn to the driver and have a conversation, if it lasts more than a couple of minutes, I get vertigo. So there's something about that forward motion and my head turning to the left that triggers vertigo. So I know not to do it.
Wow.
But I know. It's crazy, right? But otherwise, I'm back to teaching yoga. I hesitate to do back bends. I hesitate to put my head back for any reason, only because it did sort of trigger vertigo in the beginning. But otherwise, I'm teaching, practicing, and meditating and living.
Wow, that's amazing. How long did it take you to? I don't want to say. I guess get back to work, or just doing normal things. How long with using the CBD tea and lotion? How long did it take you to get back to, I guess, somewhat of a regular schedule?
Well, I am. When they first told me that it was going to take up to a year, I, being the person that I am, I was like, I'm going to beat this in 3 months.
Right.
Everyone was like, yeah, no.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, you watch me. I'll prove you wrong. And then 3 months in, I was like, I started low and slow, and I preferred to build up my strength, both mentally and physically, and build up that stamina slowly. And so when I started feeling better, maybe 3 months, I only went to work maybe 1 day a week.
Okay.
And I didn't drive. I wasn't really comfortable driving yet. And then probably about 6 months into it, I was going to work more regularly, maybe not every day of the week, maybe some days 5 days, maybe some 3, maybe 2. And then really that 6 to 8 month period, I started to really feel a lot better. And then by the 10th month, I was like, I'm good.
Okay. Wow. I'm still amazed at this, and I'm so happy. I'm really happy because, like you said, it could have been far worse. So after all of this, you create a business from this. So was this just from your experience? Did you already have this thought anyway?
No, I went back to work, and I was a changed person. Things that creatively fulfilled me previously, spiritually, emotionally, were just not cutting it anymore. I had gone through this experience that really changed me from my DNA. And so I came home one day and I said, I'm going to quit. I need to advocate for CBD. I need to advocate for cannabis in a way that is leading with education, leading with storytelling, and so that people understand that the plant is bigger than just getting stoned.
Right.
And my husband, again, big shout out to that guy, he was like, you know what? You're right. We started Indigo and Haze, and we started it as an educational, not even a platform. We started by doing these sort of Tupperware type parties where we would go to people's homes, and they would invite 10 of their friends, and we would sit around, and I would tell my story, and we would have an educational sort of moment, and then a Q&A, and people would really start to feel comfortable in their homes, in their friends' homes, talking about it, asking about it. I've heard about this. What is this? What is that? Do I need a doctor? Should I go to a doctor? What doctor? What can I use? Can I overdose? All of the things that you're sort of like still afraid to ask and really don't know who to ask.
Right.
And so through that sort of network of these sort of house parties, I was able to build up a group of people with some great knowledge who then started to say, hey, okay, I want to try this. Where can I go? And that's when the platform, we built the website.
Okay. So I have to ask you, because it's everywhere. I'm seeing articles in the papers. I'm seeing news topics. I'm seeing about local politicians trying to yay it, nay it, everything. I'm going to ask you, one, what is it like to run a business in this type of industry, and what are some of the challenges that you face? I can only imagine what it's like because of most of the general population's perception, which we've talked about earlier, which is the getting stoned factor. So what are some of those challenges?
I think you really nailed it. I think the stigma is the first thing, and I think that is eradicated through education and through a true understanding of not only what the plant can do, but the sort of myths that were built up around the plant that are just wrong. And as well as this concept of prohibition and war on drugs that really has fueled a unbalanced relationship with the plant in communities that have suffered greatly because of this war on drugs. And so I think that the start is education. I can't emphasize it enough, and I spend a lot of time really just having conversations with people, and I'm so appreciative to be able to amplify it on platforms like yours, because I think that the more people that understand it and hear my story are less likely to be afraid. So stigma, definitely. There are logistics, business issues. It's gotten a lot easier now that the Farm Bill has passed and hemp has been legalized. But there's still a lot of business infrastructures that people take for granted that are challenging for somebody in this business. Credit card processing platform, insurance, all the things that are sort of normal for small businesses. You just sort of have to navigate a little bit more with cannabis. But it's getting a lot easier, and it will continue as legalization sort of, becomes more statewide.
So is this a business that you would say I couldn't just start it like I would start any other business, whereas I get my license and
you can.
Okay.
Yes, you can. You definitely can. I would suggest having lots of conversations with people who are already in it, so you don't make the same, wrong turns. But I encourage. It's a great industry to be in. It's a very new industry, and the more sort of people with a great moral compass that are starting businesses, the greater the foundation is going to be.
Okay. All right, so it's doable. It's not something that I would have to be like a millionaire or something that like if
listen, starting a small business. It's challenging anyway.
Right.
You need whatever money you need to start a business. You need to start it in cannabis business as well. We have a traditional small business retail relationship with some of the folks that are on our site versus the stuff we make, and I think that's the difference too. If you're a maker manufacturer, that's different than just having a traditional e-commerce site or opening up a store where you're buying stuff wholesale, marking it up, getting your margins, all of that. That's the same. I think what I would emphasize for people who are thinking about getting into the business, or frankly who are already in the business, one of the most important things is to really understand the product from seed to shelf. So it is super important that you act with integrity, because this is an oil, this is a topical people are just putting on their bodies, and it is very important that you know exactly not only where it's come from, the farm, but also how it is cultivated, how it's extracted, the oil is extracted, how it's manufactured, how it's distributed, so that you maintain integrity throughout the whole supply chain.
Okay, which kind of segues to my next question. It's kind of like, how do I know what to buy? Like, where do I go? And, you know, I'm kind of like you at this moment, you know, like where would I go if I wanted to get some of these topicals? Because as a doing powerlifting, extreme training, my background is physical training. So I've got some ailments, you know, some elbow strains and things like that. Is this for me? Is this for somebody like me as well? Or is this, you know, just for...
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I would say, yeah, absolutely. And I would say that the easiest point of entry is a topical.
Okay.
So there are different types of topicals. There's a daily body lotion. There's a pain relief salve. And I think that it sounds like it just depends. So I think the first thing you have to ask yourself is, okay, what kind of relief am I seeking? Am I seeking relief from aches and pains, from injury, from daily sort of life? Or am I really having a true medical experience that I need to partner with a healthcare professional? It sounds like in your example, yes, you're an active, incredibly fit, motivated, moving person, and the joints, the elbows, the ankles, the knees are feeling it.
They're banged up. Just let's say. They're banged up.
Yeah.
I'm banged up, sis. I'm banged up. I need some help. Can you help me out there? Can you hook me up? What can I do?
Let's believe that. So there's a daily, we have a daily body lotion. So that's like, you get out of the shower and you grab your, your Eucerin, your shea butter, whatever it is you're grabbing.
Mm-hmm.
But we've decided that you should be grabbing something that is rich and high in CBD because it is a natural inflammatory and it can build up. It's a cumulative effect on your skin. Your skin also has a lot of the receptors that are going to accept CBD.
Okay.
So that's a sort of a daily practice that can build up and you'll start to feel relief after a while. It's not you put it on, you're like, woo, it's great. Then there are actual like pain salves, and we have one from a company called Mary's Nutritional, and that is sort of the same experience as anything you would have with a menthol or camphor. So you would put it on, you'll feel the tingling, you'll feel the warmth, and it'll start to relieve that inflammation, and you'll start to feel it working into your skin. Okay. And that's a great opportunity to start because it is, it's doable. It's a lotion, it's a salve, it's familiar. You massage it into your joints, start to feel that relief. There's a lot out there, but I will also say that if you don't have access and you sort of walk into your local store or your pharmacy and there's like, tons of stuff, I would say to first go online and do research, look up the company, make sure it's called the COA, and that's the lab report. Make sure that the lab reports from these companies are transparent so that you know that what you're reading on the label is what you're getting.
Got you.
And any company that is not willing to share their lab reports is a company I would not do business with.
Which goes into the who can I trust, that whole
exactly
really knowing where you're getting your product from.
And that goes for anything. It goes for cannabis. It goes for the food that you're buying in your supermarket. It goes for, anything that you are using to enhance your physical presence or mental presence in this case as well. So just like you would figure out, like, should I buy these organic peaches instead of the regular peaches? Where are these peaches coming from? Why do they look more bruised than beautiful? All of the things you would ask about your food, you should also be asking about cannabis, and particularly CBD.
Elana, I want to say to you that I am so thankful for you coming on to this show, coming on and talking with us about this topic, because as I said before, I know me. I know my ignorance level. And I don't even pretend to know what I don't know. So I'm so glad we have individuals like you to come on and teach and educate us about CBD and hemp-based products. Where can the listeners out there, if they want to reach you, they want to contact, if they want to ask more, learn more, where can they contact you?
Please, I would really appreciate it. You can go to the website. It's Indigo and Haze, HAZE.com. My information is on there. Please send me an email. I will help as much as I can. If I don't have the answers, I will put you in touch with the people who do know. And again, I encourage people. There's lots of great books out there. There's lots of great literature. And we also do a magazine called Women in Weed, and that's on the newsstands right now. That also is based in education. There's no advertising. It is all scholarly journal-like articles focusing on the fundamentals and understanding what this new industry is all about.
That's amazing. And we thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I'm going to be discussing with you because I want to get these elbows back. So I can.
Well, I did a lesson in powerlifting, so I'll trade. I'm all about the trade.
Okay, all right. Hey, listen. Hey, each one teach one. That's how we do it here. That's how we do it here.
I love it. Please.
We'll be back after these messages. Everybody, you know where you're at. You're here with the De La Fit Podcast.
Salutations and proclamations. It's Philly's #1 son, aka the Body Alchemist, Sun Moon Bay, host of the De La Fit Podcast, letting you know that you can now tune in from some of your favorite platforms. That's right, iTunes lovers, Google Play Music listeners, and Spotify addicts. Simply to tune in, go to the search section in your favorite platform and type in De La Fit Podcast. We haven't forgotten about you too, YouTube lovers or SoundCloud floaters. It's the same thing. Go to your favorite app or platform and type in the search menu, De La Fit Podcast.
It's time for another podcast excursion. Join us. We are the De La Fit Podcast.
Welcome back to the De La Fit Podcast, 360 degrees of holistic fitness and health, all in one podcast. We have, a great beginning to this week's podcast. We've already talked to Miss Elana Frankel, and she gave us some information that we did not have on CBD and the difference between THC and ABD and all these other things, which I'm still kind of weighing and walking on the tightrope. Now we have Miss Sammiyah Taliaferro. Sammiyah, did I say that correctly, or did I just butcher your name? Because
No, it's Sammiyah Taliaferro.
See, hey, look, I'm batting 100 today, people. I'm batting 100, because everybody out there who listens to the program knows I have been known to butcher names. And you know what? I'm feeling good, feeling great, feeling fine. How are you?
I'm super awesome. No worries.
Sammiyah, I want you to kind of give a little background on yourself to those listening, because we kind of know each other already. But just give a little background on what it is that you're doing in the world of cannabis and just yourself in general.
Well, my name is Sammiyah Sunflower Taliaferro. I have a company called Sunflower Space Cakes, and what we do is cannabis vegan treats. We infuse different products with cannabis, desserts, food, rubbing oils, all of those things for medicinal and for your own pleasure. I believe that THC and CBD are great for you. I myself personally use both products. I know they're two different plants, but they both come from the hemp family, and they both have cannabinoids. It's just the different levels. THC I like a little more because it has the euphoric feeling along with the healing properties. And so basically in 2014, once cannabis became legal in Denver, it sparked something inside of me, because I've been baking since I was 8 years old, to go out there and see what they were doing. And while I was out there, I was vegan, and I tried a couple of treats, and they were kind of dry, and I didn't really like them. So I'm like, why make better stuff than that? So the next time I went out, I took a couple of cooking classes to learn how to actually infuse different things, because you can infuse anything from alcohol to sugar to a fat substance, like I use coconut oil, or you can use like a milk or something like that. And I just wanted to do the research on how personally I could use these and make things better for myself. And then someone tasted them and they were like, oh, you should sell them. And then from there, we started to do, the 420 every year like everyone else, and celebrate it. But seeing like my sales were going past 420, so I was, doing regular little orders. And then we decided in January, why don't we just do a WIE event, which means weed and everything. And so basically we threw our first event in March, cannabis-infused chili, cornbread, and edibles. And then we had people come in to actually buy flower of different strands, and had people there who was educated to help educate people, to tell them exactly what they need, the difference between indica and sativa, and what's best for them, and, certain things like that. And it just sparked something, because now I feel like the world is not looking at cannabis the same way. And I want to get on and ride that ride, and how the West Coast is basically open and free, but it's open and free to corporations. And I feel like a lot of people here aren't going to get the same benefits. So I'm trying to work with a group of people so we can get those benefits. If a dispensary is in your area, I believe that the people in the neighborhood should profit if they invest in it. They should have first ops to do that, because it's very lucrative And it's a good industry. It's not looked upon the same as, let's say, that movie from the 60s, Reefer Madness, which was the craziest and funniest movie. And you've got to watch it high because it's hilarious. The stuff that you predict, the propaganda that is in the movie is just so funny. And then a few years ago, the funniest thing, Australia did this anti-cannabis campaign, and basically it was like a sloth. And they were like, oh, you become like a smoker sloth or a stoner sloth. And they, sloths are very slow moving, but kind and very, they have a good temperament. They don't get angry or anything. And they were using that as the symbol, but it backfired and making more people jump onto the cannabis wagon. So the commercials were pretty funny, and so they kind of like dropped the whole campaign because it didn't help them in their endeavor. Okay. And so, from there on, we just, we're riding this bandwagon, and it's a beautiful thing. It's wonderful.
So, Sammiyah, let me ask you this. You talked a little bit about the benefits. Let's go deeper to that. What are the positives and negatives of effects of consuming THC or marijuana or THC or hemp-based products? What's the proper language and terminology, first of all?
If you're talking about cannabis, you're talking about THC or CBD, but THC is the one that has the euphoric effect. Weed or marijuana are kind of negative words because cannabis is a flower. Basically, we smoke the flower. Cannabis is the plant, and we smoke the flower because only the female plants give off buds, and those buds are dried out, and then you can smoke them or cook them or, bake them. And so basically, I don't see any negative effects. I've been doing it for over 30 years, and the only negative effect I've ever had is maybe the law. Outside of that, I see it's a win-win scenario. It helps with depression. It helps with, as a female, the time of month, the actual lubes, the rubs, they actually help. The ingesting it helps. I have asthma, I have arthritis, but none of those things bother me. As well as, I'm vegan, so that helps out. But I feel like, you take some shea butter, you put some cannabis oil in it, and whatever ails you on your body, any kind of pain or joints, it kind of relieves that pain. And it's I don't see any negatives. I only see positives. And another positive aspect is it can generate the funds that a lot of these, especially here in Philadelphia, the government needs to help in certain realms. Like they have the sugar tax. If they had cannabis, they would be making more than on the sugar tax, and they would be able to have their Get Start programs and their preschool programs and the computer programs. And when I was younger, they used to have the work programs for 14 to 16-year-olds, the work study programs, and all those things that they're able to fund. You can fund it through cannabis, and I believe that that's a real thing.
Now, I got to ask you a question. I just want your opinion on this because, like you said, about the pros and the cons. So they say a 39-year-old woman passed away in February. The official cause of death was THC. Now, the coroner is from Louisiana. He did the, what do they call that, the medical examination and everything like that, and there seemed to be nothing wrong with her except that he found huge amounts of THC in her system. Now, many experts, they're saying it's highly unlikely, but with this being out there, this one isolated incident, would you say that, of course, with anything, you have to be moderate with how you can use cannabis-based products?
No, I would say no. First of all, what's his credentials? A lot of examiners aren't really doctors. So what science does he have? I've never heard, and still today, there's never been any deaths because of THC or cannabis. It's unheard of. You can take that to any scientist, any record. None of it shows that you can ever. The worst thing that can happen is you lose track of time because you fell asleep. That's the negative. Like you would have a nice nap, but I've never seen it or heard of anything like that. And I know many individuals are other experts in cannabis and cannabis-based products are also siding and agreeing with you.
This can be researched and sourced by an author, Natasha Ishak. for the website, allthat'sinteresting.com, just to cite it if you ever want to look up the interview. I myself, like I said, I know very little about the subject. As I was talking earlier with one of our guests earlier in the program, and, you know, my knowledge, although I have no judgment of the plant, I've heard of the benefits, I agree with the benefits, anything that I believe that can be positive and is from the earth. Being vegan myself, you know, I'm total in agreement with. But I just wanted to bring it up, you know, playing devil's advocate. This is part of what we do here at the show. We're constantly trying to act as a resource. So I just wanted to ask that question to you. Another question I have to ask you is, you know, we're talking about the stigma and negativity that marijuana use or the term weed and all those other things dealing with THC and cannabis-based products. Have you felt any of that with your business? Do you deal or have you had any issues with that, with what you're doing?
Previously, a few years ago, yes. Now it seems like people are very open to it. I get people as young as 21 to people as old as 85. I had a grandma from Spain who basically wanted brownies because she has arthritis. Mm-hmm. There's another woman I know who has emphysema.
Okay.
And she's unable to smoke. And so she buys products from me because she can eat them. And they help with her, help her heal. So before it was a huge stigma, basically because of the propaganda that they were putting out. But now it's way more open and people are open to it. So now I can just basically pop up somewhere and no one, you know, I don't get the same looks as I used to maybe 5-6 years ago.
When you say looks, give us
like,
an example.
Oh, you know, people are like, oh my God, you're doing that, or you're right out in the open. It was like an event not too long ago, and a person was like, oh, are you allowed to do this? Are you allowed to sell these? Mm-hmm. Well, what does that mean? Am I allowed? I'm able to do it physically, so that's what I'm doing, right. And that's what's happening. I haven't had any problems with the law or anything like that, and I've been in events on the city streets. I was just at a Doom Day. I was just at the Philadelphia Vegan Festival on South Street. No problems, no issues at all. I have state representatives buying products from me. I'm not going to say their names because maybe they don't want to know, but right now, because medical marijuana is legal, a lot of them are card holders, but because of certain things in the law, they aren't allowed to have edibles, but they're working on that with, I believe, a law that's in Congress now called SB 143, which will allow it to the open market for edibles, okay, and easier for people to ingest cannabis.
So take us through some of the beginnings of, for an individual who might be interested, like how did you go about doing it? You know, I'm sure you did the research online and, you know, you did a lot more footwork. Just kind of take us through a little bit of those steps for individuals out there that might be interested in learning more and getting into the cannabis and hemp and CB, I'm getting ready to mess it up, CBD mm-hmm. market. You know, how did they begin those steps?
Well, basically, I started by going and actually taking a few different cooking classes to learn how to get the THC out of the actual plant, because a lot of people make the mistake of trying to grind up cannabis and throw it in to a batch of brownie mix and then bake it in the oven. But there's a certain level of heat that if the cannabis hits, it will take out all of the THC and the euphoric aspect of it, and you won't have anything, and it won't do anything for you. So first you have to basically take classes so you know how to control the heat and what's the amount of heat. Like normally you make cookies on 375, 350, but not if you're baking with cannabis. It's a little bit lower because you want to hold on to the THC. So basically I took a couple of different baking classes. The crazy thing is that in my neighborhood, there were some people who wanted edibles, and my children who were not children, they were basically 19 at the time, mm-hmm. were trying to bake, and they can't bake. And so I was just like, what are those? And they were like, oh, they're cookies and brownies. And I'm like, I've been baking forever. No, they're not. And so basically I kind of, showed them how to do it. And I was like, hey, I like this. And then I was like, tasting it, and I'm like, hey, I like this. I like doing this. I've always liked to bake, even though I've done a lot of different corporate jobs, mostly accounting, customer service, administrative work. And so I was just like, oh, I like this. I really like baking. I've always liked baking. I love culinary arts. I love creating things. I have a really good palate, so I can taste things without actually making them. So I was like, well, let me give a hand. So I made a batch. And they went out and sold them so quickly. And I'm just like, wait a minute. Normally for a brownie, it's $1 or $2. My brownies are $10. So you're talking about if you have a bake sale at a school, you might make a measly $250 or something. You're talking about like $1,000. So I'm just like, wow. Ooh, these are two things I like. Three. Cannabis, baking, and money. Wow, right. They all kind of like go together. They line up. And just educating people. And it kind of, for some people, it's very therapeutic. Like for me, it's therapeutic. I work 9 to 5, so I don't stop in the middle of my job and go smoke a blunt. I might smoke a blunt in the morning, have my latte, but I'm at work all day. I don't need it like that. I don't need to be stoned out of my mind because I'm not running from anything. Right. But I do need to come home and relax and, it helps with meditation. It's awesome when you do yoga and things like that. So I started to induce it in that, and I started making money from it. So I'm just like, well, let me do this. And then I traveled other places and people were requesting it. Some of my bigger customers were actually in New York. So for 2 years, I was traveling to New York every other weekend and basically fulfilling orders for people, baking them cannabis goods. And wow. I'm just like, this is awesome. I should just do a pop-up. We did. We made great money. And everywhere we go, we just make really good money. And I just love the interaction of people and connecting with them on that level. And I love food. And, it just all works for me.
Sammiyah, what's the general cost of your products? I'm curious. Like, if I was to pop up and like, okay, like, I guess you do pound cakes or like, tell us the different type of pastries that you do, like, and then what do they cost?
All right, so I do brownies, which everyone expects. That's why it's called sunflower space cakes, because in the 60s and 70s, they would make the brownies, and they were like space cakes because they would space you out.
Okay.
So I started with brownies, and I was like, oh, I can do brownies. And then, of course, cookies would come. And then I started doing stuff like chocolate. It's easy to put it in chocolate, so I'm making chocolate bars, chocolate candies, chocolate-covered pretzels, chocolate-covered, vegan marshmallows. And then it started the candies, and we're making Rice Krispie treats. And, then I did the tacos, and then I did chili and cornbread, and anything that takes a fat. Basically, in most baking products, you need a fat you can put it into. And so the cost for the baking products, of course, are inexpensive. They're not that. You can take flour and sugar, and those aren't the expensive. The most expensive part is the actual getting decent cannabis, because I don't just buy cannabis off the street.
Right.
I try to get an organic product to put into mine, which that's where the cost really comes from. Getting the right kind of cannabis in your product. And I try to use strains that are helpful and useful. So I know the strain, I know how much, I know how many milligrams are in each dose, and what it'll do and what it won't do. And that's really important, knowing the difference between a sativa or an indica and what'll happen, or a hybrid and things of that sort. So basically, a brownie costs $10. My products aren't as expensive as some, because I've vended with other people, and I know one company, they have one cookie for $10. You can get 2 of my cookies for $5. But my stuff's from scratch, and it's all vegan. And basically, when you cook vegan, it's not as expensive because I'm not using milk and eggs and things like that.
Right.
So it's all plant-based, so it's a little bit more affordable. So my prices kind of have stayed the same. I've never really raised my prices, but I've added more things to it. Like now I'm doing full vegan dinners and private parties for people. So, and I also do, I infuse alcohol. So now you can do like cocktails. And so I can do like a full course meal from like the appetizer to the dessert, signature cocktail, anything in between.
Wow. So, one thing that we talked to when we were speaking with Elana earlier in the podcast, she said about definitely knowing your product, just like you were talking about. So I imagine that you are very close to like farmers or individuals who are, dealing with the different strands as you're talking about, so that you know about getting the best product to use in your edibles.
Right. Yeah, you need a good connection. Some of my stuff I get from California, Denver. I have a new connection in D.C. because they can grow their own plants. And it's really important to know exactly what's going on. So there's no GMO manipulation or anything added to the plant. Because I'm a plant-based person, I'm close to nature. I want my product to be as close to nature as possible. So I use a lot of date sugars and then a lot of natural products in them. And I do know my product. Basically, before I even start to cook, I test the product myself to make sure, smelling, looking at it, actually, smoking the product to see the effects of it and that type of thing. And I actually have, a little bit of a test kitchen. We do tests with different people. Sometimes we use people who've never ingested cannabis before, and different people of all different backgrounds. And then sometimes we use people who have, and sometimes I'm just the guinea pig and I check it out.
Sammiyah, if a person wants to contact you, find you, try your edibles, where can they go to do this? How can they talk to you? If there's wanted to start their own business and wanted to ask you questions, where can they contact you?
Oh, that would be great, because I think that everyone should try to get on this bandwagon as much as possible, because it's going to take tens and thousands of dollars, but if you come together as a group. So right now what I do is I do the WIE, which is an event that we have, and we invite people. And you might even do what I do. You might do edibles too, but I'll invite you to my event. There's people who do massages, make creams, all kinds of things, actually sell the actual flower, and I feel like that's a really good way to network. But to find me, you can find me on Instagram, Sunflower Space Cakes, also WIE, as well as Facebook, Sunflower Space Cakes, or on Facebook, I'm Sammiyah Sunflower Taliaferro. And you can just, DM me or message me, and I'm glad to help you start any kind of questions. If people want to reach out, it's great. It's enough that we can all make money and we can all heal each other and, be good.
Sammiyah, I thank you so much for your time. I know you're a very busy woman, but I appreciate you giving your energy to this topic, something that is highly misunderstood. And I'm sure many people have questions about it as more information comes out about CBD and THC and cannabis-based products and the benefits that they can have for people, and just, as well as getting to the entrepreneurial market of the legalization of these products. So we thank you so much for coming on to the De La Fit podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me on and showing me love. And it was really good to see you grow and do your thing. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. We'll be back after these messages, everyone.
So I just want to take the time out to thank our guests for joining us here today. Sammiyah Taliaferro and Elana Frankel. I want to say thank you to both of these amazing women who took the time out of their busy schedules, took the time out to devote their energy to coming here and talking with us and educating not only myself but the listeners on CBD and THC and the topic of cannabis in general. You know, a lot of things I didn't know, and I feel a little bit more educated on the topic. There's still some things I want to research and kind of have answered, but you know, it's all about the conversation. It's all about the research, and that's what we're about here. We're about finding out and asking questions where it comes to our fitness, you know, our holistic fitness, our entirety. You know, so I am so grateful to both of these women who decided that they would make the decision to come to the show and accept our invitation, because I think that not only did they just benefit this humble host, they benefited a lot of our listeners out there who can now understand a little bit more about the conversation that's taking place in the media, the conversation dealing with cannabis, and not just on its superficial level. It's got a much deeper level, and I'm just grateful to both of these powerful women for coming to us and educating us and teaching us about this subject. If you get the chance, please email, Google these two powerful women and find out more about their businesses. Indigo and Haze is Miss Elana Frankel's business, and Sunflower Space Cakes is Sammiyah Taliaferro's business. They are on Instagram. Please do your due diligence and contact them. I am sure they will be more than grateful to answer your questions. With that being said, we're getting ready to end the podcast. I just want to say that I want to send a special thank you to all of the listeners out there. Without you, we would have no podcast. We would have no platform to be a resource to have these conversations. Thank you so much for spending your time with us, for sitting down and listening, because time is precious. It's one of the most precious commodities. In my opinion, there's only two absolute paramount commodities that we have. That would be time and children. You know, those time is of the essence. Time is energy. Time is knowledge. Time is smiles. It's health. It's fitness. It's everything. And children are the answer to every problem that we have in the near future, which again would be time. Time has to be put into children. So with that being said, thank you for being part of the village and being part of this journey of each one teach one. As always, treat yourself right. Be nice to yourself. Love yourself. If you love yourself, you're going to love others, and you're going to treat them well too. Be safe, be well. Peace. See you next week.
You've been listening to the Delafit podcast. Ta-ta for now.